The widow and the weight of debt. The banker's fist slammed against the desk, rattling the ink bottle. You got till the week's end, Mrs. McGraw. Then I take what's owed. Clara didn't flinch. Her hands, raw from scrub work, rested on the worn edge of her shawl. Outside the office window, the wind dragged grit across Main Street. Hinges groaned, and a drunk's laugh carried through the heat like a crack in glass. I've nothing left to give you, she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. The banker leaned back in his chair, sweat shining on his collar. That's the trouble. You've bled the land dry, and debts don't vanish 'cause a man dies. His gaze slid over her like a vulture circling. There's always ways for a woman to pay. The chair scraped. Clara rose without a word. The banker's smirk widened, as if he'd pushed her into silence. She opened the door, dust rushing in, and stepped into the glare of noon. The street was near empty, only a dog sleeping under a trough, a pair of old men spitting tobacco by the saloon. The sun pressed heavy, beating shadows flat against the boards. Clara's boots struck the dirt hard, her shoulders squared. Mrs. McGraw, a voice called. Elias Carter stood across the street, reins in hand, his daughter perched behind him on the horse. The girl waved, curls bouncing, but Elias's eyes were fixed on Clara. He saw the tightness in her jaw, the way she kept walking like a storm gathering heat. Banker at you again? He asked, voice carrying low across the street. Clara stopped. Dust swirled around her hem, clinging like smoke. She met his gaze, then turned away. It's none of your affair, Mr. Carter. Elias swung down, his boots raising small clouds as he crossed. His daughter clung to the saddle horn, eyes wide, following his shadow. It is my affair, Elias said, his tone edged with steel. He's had men sniffing round my ranch, too. Banker wants more than money. He wants land. Yours. Mine. Anyone too worn down to fight. Clara's lip curled faintly. Not a smile, but something sharper. Then fight him. Not alone, Elias said. He shifted closer, lowering his voice. You'll not hold him off yourself. You know that. Her hand tightened on the shawl. For a moment, silence thickened, only the clop of a passing mule breaking it. Clara's eyes flicked toward Elias's daughter, waiting on the horse, small fingers gripping leather, face open as the sky. Clara looked back at him, her gaze unreadable. You've got a child to think of, she said flat. So do you. The word struck harder than he meant. Her shoulders stiffened, and for a breath the air felt knife-sharp between them. Then Elias exhaled, the weight of his own losses pressing through. Clara, come supper time, I'll have stew on. You, and need talk. No banker will touch you if you stand under my roof. Clara studied him, the creases at the corners of his eyes, the set of his jaw that spoke of battles already fought. She said nothing, only pulled her shawl tighter and walked past him, boots crunching toward the edge of town. Underscore. That night, the desert wind rose, keening through the gaps in her broken shutters. Clara sat at the table, a single lamp throwing shadows across bare wood. A ledger lay open, numbers scrawled by her husband's hand, debts marching like soldiers. She touched the ink with her fingertip, then closed the book. The house creaked around her, brittle as bone. In the distance, a coyote cried, and the sound carried like grief. The knock at the door was soft. She rose, lantern in hand, heart thudding. When she opened it, Elias stood there, hat in hand. His daughter peered from behind his leg, holding a bundle wrapped in cloth. Didn't mean to intrude, Elias said, but the wind's tearing fierce. Brought you bread. Clara looked down at the girl. The child's eyes were wide, unafraid. She held the bundle out with both hands. Clara took it slowly. Thank you. You shouldn't sit here alone, Elias said. His gaze swept the room, the cracked beams, the empty shelves. It's not safe. I've managed, Clara replied. Her chin lifted, defiance like a blade. Elias hesitated, then spoke, quiet, almost reluctant. There's talk he's sending Rourke. You know the name. Her hand tightened on the lantern. Every soul in the territory knew the name. Rourke, the banker's hound, a man with more graves behind him than scars. Clara's jaw set. Let him come. The girl tilted her head at Clara's voice, studying her the way children study storms. Elias exhaled slow, his eyes narrowing as if seeing something he hadn't before. Clara, he said, tone deliberate, weight heavy. I can't offer you coin, but I can offer you my name, my roof, my land. The banker won't dare take what's bound to me. The words hung in the dim lamplight. The house groaned, wind rattling the shutters like chains. Clara stared at him, her face carved in shadow. You'd marry a woman to shield her debts? I'd marry a woman who deserves shelter, Elias said. His voice did not waver. Her breath caught, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she looked past him, into the night, where the desert stretched endless and merciless under the stars. The girl clutched her father's coat. Papa, she whispered, the widow strong. Clara's eyes flickered, then softened for a heartbeat. But she said nothing more. She closed the door gently, lantern light fading. Outside, Elias stood in the wind, staring at the door long after it shut, as if listening for something behind it. Underscore. Morning came raw and brittle. Clara stepped into the yard, bucket in hand, the well rope fraying under her grasp. Across the distance, a rider's shadow lingered on the ridge. Watching, she set the bucket down slowly, the handle creaking in her grip. The desert gave no answers. Only the wind moving through dry grass, carrying whispers that no one wished to hear. And somewhere in town, the banker's laugh echoed, low and certain, like a clock striking time down to its last breath. Shelter and shadows. The hammer struck wood, sharp and final. Clara drove the nail clean through the fence post, the echo rolling out across the canyon like a shot. Straight as a soldier's spine, Elias said, stepping back, sweat darkening his shirt. Clara wiped her brow with the back of her wrist, dust streaking her skin. The girl stood nearby, braid loose, holding another nail between her small fingers. Miss Clara's quicker than you, Papa, she said, her grin missing a tooth. Clara glanced at Elias, who smirked faintly, then spat into the dirt. Don't let her fool you. She's got more fire than most men I've ridden with. The girl laughed, but Clara's eyes cut sharp at Elias, warning him against too much praise. She turned back to the fence, the land stretching endless behind it. Dry ridges, jagged stone, sky burning white. A hawk circled high above, its shadow passing over them like a dark omen. From the ridge beyond, dust lifted. Riders. 3 of them, their figures black against the sun. Clara stiffened. Elias set his jaw, pulling the girl behind him. They didn't ride fast, only close enough to be seen. One lifted his hat in mock courtesy, then spat into the wind before turning back toward town. The others laughed, the sound carrying thin and sharp. They're watching, Elias muttered. Clara didn't move, her hand still gripping the hammer. They want us to know. The girl clung tighter to her father's coat. Elias knelt, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Inside, he said. She obeyed, running toward the porch, her braid flying behind her. Clara and Elias stood silent a long moment, watching the riders vanish behind the ridge. The desert swallowed them whole, leaving only dust twisting in the air. Underscore. Underscore. That night the house groaned under the wind. Elias sat at the table, mending a saddle strap. Clara moved near the hearth, stirring stew. The girl slept curled on a blanket, her breathing soft, her small hand clutching a wooden horse. The fire cracked. Elias looked up. They'll come back. Rourke don't send men to wave his hat unless he's staking claim. Clara ladled stew into a bowl, set it before him. Then we watch. And we're ready. He frowned. Readiness don't stop bullets, Clara. I'll go to the sheriff come morning. Her laugh was short, bitter. The sheriff's owned. He'll tell you to pay what you can't. Elias's jaw worked. He reached for the spoon, but his hand lingered at the bowl's edge. You speak like a woman who's fought this fight before. Her eyes met his, firelight throwing sharp shadows across her face. I speak like a woman who knows men like Rourke. The silence held, thick and heavy. Outside, coyotes yipped in the canyon, their cries piercing the dark. Underscore. Days passed. Clara worked the ranch as though it were hers, mending fences, hauling water, teaching the girl to gather eggs and check snares. Each sunrise was blood red, each sunset heavy with dust. And always, riders on the horizon, keeping watch. One afternoon, Clara found the girl perched on a fence rail, clutching her father's rifle across her lap. The weapon looked near bigger than her. Where'd you get that? Clara demanded, striding over. The girl blinked, caught but unashamed. Papa says men might come. I'll be ready. Clara knelt, prying the rifle for her small hands. This isn't play. I know, the girl whispered. But I seen you sharpening things in the shed at night. I know you ain't scared. Clara froze. The girl's eyes glowed with something fierce, something that cut deep into Clara's chest. She swallowed hard, setting the rifle aside. You listen to me, Clara said, her voice low, steady. Being strong doesn't mean rushing to fight. It means knowing when to stand and when to wait. The girl nodded, though her small fists still clenched. Clara touched her cheek, rough fingers brushing soft skin. But if the time comes, you don't let anyone make you small. The child smiled, bright and unbroken. Clara stood, shouldering the rifle, and felt Elias's eyes watching from the barn doorway. He said nothing, only studied her long, like a man recognizing something he hadn't seen before. Underscore. Two nights later, the saloon was thick with smoke and stale whiskey. Laughter rolled like thunder through the warped walls. At a back table, Rourke sat with two of his men, boots spread, spurs glinting in the lamplight. His hat brim shadowed a scar that cut down his cheek, his grin all teeth. They say the widow's got fire, one man muttered. Rourke's laugh was a growl. Fire burns out. Wind'll see to that. Another leaned in. Banker says Carter's off-airing her shelter. Says maybe she ain't so weak. Rourke's hand dropped heavy on the table, rattling glasses. Shelter's just a roof. Roofs burn. I'll make sure they all remember that. The men laughed, but the sound was jagged, uneasy. Rourke's eyes were cold, fixed on nothing but some vision in the smoke. Underscore. At dawn, Clara stood at the well, pulling the rope hand over hand. The bucket rose dripping, water flashing in the first light. Her back was straight, her breath even. On the ridge, riders sat again, unmoving. One lifted a bottle, drinking, then hurled it to shatter against the stones. The sound cracked like a gunshot. Clara didn't flinch. She carried the water to the house, shoulders squared against the horizon. Inside, Elias loaded shells into a rifle. He glanced at her as she entered. They'll test us soon. Clara set the bucket down, water sloshing. Her voice was quiet, but cut through the room like steel. Then let them. The fire popped in the hearth, and the girl stirred on her blanket, murmuring in her sleep. The shadows stretched long across the floor, dark fingers creeping toward the door, as though the desert itself waited just beyond. The gathering storm, Flames clawed at the night, swallowing wood with a roar. Clara stood at the edge of the dirt road, lantern shaking in her hand as her house collapsed into fire. Sparks spat into the black sky, drifting like angry stars. Rourke's men laughed from their saddles, their silhouettes lit red. One tipped his hat in mocking salute. Then they turned and thundered into the canyon, leaving smoke and ruin behind. Clara didn't scream. She didn't run forward. She simply watched, her face cut in hard lines by firelight. When the roof caved with a crash, she turned and walked away, the lantern steady in her grip. Underscore. At Carter Ranch, Elias slammed his fist against the table hard enough to rattle the dishes. They torched your house. Next it'll be the barn, the stock, then us. Clara set the lantern down, the soot still fresh on her hands. Then we stopped waiting. The girl, awake in the corner, clutched her blanket tighter. Her eyes darted between them, wide and frightened. Elias softened his voice. Clara, she's here. Clara turned toward the child. Her voice was calm, even. Don't be afraid, little one. Fear's what men like Rourke feed on, and fear makes you small. The girl's grip eased. She nodded, slow, as though memorizing each word. Elias rubbed his temple, voice heavy. You speak like you've lived this fight before. Clara's gaze lingered on the rifle leaning in the corner. Some lessons don't fade. Underscore. By morning, whispers coiled through town. The widow's house burned to the ground. No tears shed, only silence. Some said she was cursed. Others muttered she was born of desert steel. In the saloon, men shifted uncomfortably when her name was spoken. One old woman spat into her cup. Mark me, she ain't finished. That one's got a reckoning in her blood. The preacher, standing by the bar, shook his head. Reckoning's a sin. She'd do well to pray. But the whispers grew louder, spilling into alleys, into the church steps, into the marketplace where men bartered in shadows. Clara McGraw, they said, was no ordinary widow. Underscore. That evening, Elias found her in the barn, sharpening an old revolver by lamplight. The steel gleamed, edge clean, handle worn smooth from long use. He froze in the doorway. Where'd you get that? Claire didn't look up. It was my husband's. He taught me to keep it close. Close don't mean ready. The rasp of metal on stone carried sharp through the quiet. Clara's voice was flat. I've been ready a long time, Elias. I just buried it. Thought I could live quiet. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing. You draw on Rourke? With a girl in this house. Her hand paused. She finally looked up, eyes steady as flint. I draw on anyone who comes for her. Or for you. The air thickened. Elias's chest rose, fell. He wanted to argue, but the words caught. Instead he said low, God help me, Clara. You mean it. She set the revolver down, her voice barely a whisper. I always have. The next day brought blood. A ranch hand, one of Elias's oldest workers, was found face down in the dust near town. A bullet in his back, his body dumped like trash outside the livery. The townsfolk gathered, voices hushed. No law came. No one dared name the killer. But everyone knew. Clara stood beside the wagon as the body was lifted. Her face was unreadable, though her hands clenched tight at her sides. Elias cursed under his breath, rage burning in his eyes. The sheriff, standing useless nearby, tipped his hat low. A shame. But you poke men like Rourke, you best expect teeth. Clara's gaze snapped to him, sharp as a blade. And what do you call a sheriff who lets wolves roam free? The sheriff's mouth worked, but no sound came. He turned away, shame crawling down his neck. The crowd whispered louder. The widow had spoken, and the sheriff had bowed his head. Underscore, 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 underscore. That night, thunder gathered on the horizon, storm clouds black against the blood-red sky. Wind howled through the canyon, rattling shutters and snapping ropes. The girl clung to Clara's skirt as lightning split the heavens. In the flicker of the storm, Clara checked the revolver again, loading each chamber with deliberate care. Elias watched, silent. His hands rested on the rifle across his knees, but his eyes were fixed on her. "You'll bring war to this house," he said at last. Her voice came cold, steady, unyielding. "War's already here." The girl looked up at her father, then at Clara, small face caught between fear and awe. She whispered, "She ain't scared, Papa." Elias swallowed hard, his throat tight. He looked at Clara, her figure outlined by firelight and storm, and something in him shifted. Respect. Fear. Maybe both. Outside, lightning cracked again. The desert waited, and in that silence before rain, it seemed even the earth knew a reckoning was near. The widow's reckoning. Hoofbeats shook the ground, a low thunder rolling closer. Dust rose on the horizon, curling into the shape of men riding fast and hard. Elias shoved shells into the rifle, his jaw locked tight. "They're coming." Clara stepped past him onto the porch, revolver already in her hand. The girl clutched the doorway, eyes wide, the wooden horse pressed tight against her chest. The riders broke over the ridge, Rourke in front, his scar catching the sun. His men fanned out behind him like vultures circling carrion. The storm clouds that had gathered all week swirled black above, as though the desert itself was holding its breath. Rourke slowed his horse just short of the fence, dust spilling around him. His grin was all teeth. "Evening, Carter. Heard you were playing house with a widow. Thought we'd stop by, make introductions." Elias lifted the rifle, steady. "You've said enough, Rourke." But Clara stepped forward, boots hitting the porch with final weight. She raised her revolver, eyes locked on the scarred gunman. "No, Elias," she said, voice sharp as steel. "He's mine." The men laughed, cruel and jagged. Rourke leaned in his saddle. "Well now, widow's got bite. Ain't no place for you in this, girl. Go back inside. Let the men settle it." Clara didn't blink. "You think I've lived this long just to hide behind a man? Step down, Rourke." The laughter died. Even the horses shifted, uneasy. Rourke's grin faltered, replaced by something darker. He swung from the saddle, boots sinking into the dirt. "You sure you want this?" His hand hovered near his holster. Her answer came with the cock of her revolver. Underscore. The wind stilled. The desert fell silent. Not a bird, not a coyote, not a breath dared break it. Then Rourke drew. The crack split the air. Clara's revolver fired first. His shot went wide, gouging the post behind her. Her bullet tore through his arm, spinning him sideways. He cursed, clutching the wound, rage twisting his face. Elias's rifle roared, dropping one of the men who tried to rush forward. The yard exploded in chaos. Gunfire spat flame. Horses screamed. Dust churned into smoke. Clara moved like lightning. Every step measured, every shot deliberate. A rider came at her, pistol raised. She dropped him clean through the chest. Another tried flanking. Elias cut him down with a rifle's thunder. The girl screamed once, then bit her lip hard and stayed hidden in the doorway, clutching that wooden horse like a talisman. Her eyes never left Clara. Underscore. Rourke staggered to his feet, blood soaking his sleeve. His men were falling, one by one, under Clara's merciless aim. His fury boiled, his face twisted with disbelief. "You think you're a gunslinger?" he spat, voice ragged. "You're just a woman wearing grief like a badge." Clara's revolver smoked. She stepped closer, eyes unshaken. "And you're just a coward hiding behind fear." He roared and fired. She dropped to one knee, his bullet cutting air where her heart had been. Her return shot cracked like judgment, slamming through his chest. Rourke froze, shock etched deep, then crumpled to the dust. His men scattered, fear breaking them. Hooves pounded into the canyon as the survivors fled, leaving their leader's body cooling under the storm. The silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire. Smoke drifted. The smell of powder clung to the air. Clara lowered the revolver slowly, breath steady, eyes never leaving the scarred man lying dead at her feet. The girl ran across the porch, throwing her arms around Clara's waist. "You did it," she whispered, voice trembling with awe. Clara dropped a hand to the child's hair, her fingers gentle despite the gun still warm in her grip. Elias stepped forward, rifle in hand, gaze fixed on her, as though seeing her for the first time. "You were ready all along." Clara met his eyes, her voice quiet, almost distant. "I was born ready. I just waited for the desert to remember me." Lightning split the sky overhead. Rain began to fall, heavy and sudden, hissing against the dust, washing blood into the earth. By morning, the banker had fled. The sheriff muttered excuses, hat low, shame dragging his shoulders. And the town whispered louder than ever, their voices carrying across porches, saloons, church steps. They called her Widow Carter, the old storytellers would say. The woman who burned no tears, who stood against wolves, who carved her name into the desert with lead and fire. Some swore she'd saved only one ranch. Others swore she'd saved the whole town. But all agreed on one thing. When the storm rose and the desert waited, it was Clara who stepped forward and Clara who did not miss. And if you ride those canyons now, when the wind runs hard and the sky burns red, they say you can still hear the echo of her gun. Sharp, sure, unbroken.